Hello, rock and roll rebels, and welcome to another episode of Ramble On with Rosie. We are here celebrating the wonderful month of Springstember because we're celebrating Bruce Springsteen all September long. And today's topic relating to the boss is going to be one of the things that really endeared me to him as I got back into his music as an adult, which is the fact that this man just respects women so much. He does this thing that so few other songwriters really seem to grasp, which is to give the women in his songs independent lives outside of their romantic value. Because romance is great, but it doesn't really pack as much punch when you're that's the only function you serve is to be a romantic ideal, versus hey, you have a life, you have a job, you have children, you have all these other things that Bruce sticks the women in his songs in. And acknowledging those things is, important so that, it feels like the guy's actually paying some attention, whether it's, paying attention to Frankie putting on her makeup before she goes out, or making sure that the girl in Atlantic City puts on stockings because it's getting cold out. It's the devil's in the details, and Bruce gets them details and really just grasps the women in his songs to a fuller extent than most other songwriters I'm aware of do. He makes them real. They're flesh and blood. They're not, some fantasy pop princess sitting on her couch plaintively waiting for her date to come pick her up. They are real, and they have jobs quite often, and it's really refreshing, and is one of the things that made me absolutely love Bruce once I got to the point where I was an adult and I was living that life. I was not living the pop princess high school life anymore. I never really did. I didn't have tons of dates banging down the door or anything like that. But, as an adult, I got really into, Bruce because of this. I mean, to the point that my dad, who's not a Bruce fan, I was sort of excusing or explaining my love of Bruce. And I was sort of I get that he's kind of, I like him because I'm a girl. I thought that was normal. I didn't realize that up until The River, Bruce didn't have very many female fans. And I'm were the girls in the 70s high? I mean, they probably were. But seriously, how did you just miss, 4 albums of high quality content with many songs that love and respect women? I'm how'd y'all miss that? You had to wait till The River, and then it's, Hungry Heart, which is, one of the cheesiest Bruce songs there is. I mean, don't get me wrong, it's great to sing along to, but it does not pack the punch that a lot of other Bruce songs do. I'm they were missing out. Hopefully they've, went back and binged the previous 4 albums. I don't know. Not my place to judge the past, but I am what were y'all doing? Because this theme goes back all the way to things like in the E Street Shuffle, with Little Angels kind of running the show more than Power 13 is. She's over here and she's leading the dance, telling everybody to form a line. She is trying to keep the boys out of trouble, and she's the one picking up Power 13 to go hit to the scene. Unlike your normal rock and pop song themes where it's usually the guy picking up the girl, she's picking up her boyfriend, who's the leader of the gang, and he's okay with that, His machismo is not insulted by the fact that his girlfriend is driving him around. I mean, some of this probably has to do with the fact that Bruce was driven around a lot by girls, because the man didn't get his license until he was 20. He had a motorcycle, though. I've never quite been able to figure out how that worked, where he had a motorcycle that he wrecked when he was 16 or 17. But he didn't have a driver's license till he was, in his 20s on that road trip out to California, where the 2 vehicles got separated. You can read about it in his autobiography. But I'm how did that work? Someone explain that to me, if you can. Anyways, moving on. And also in songs like Instant on 57th Street, where Puerto Rican Jane approaches Spanish Johnny. And not only is she sort of making the first move a little bit, but she's not this idyllic pop princess sitting on her sofa with her perfectly manicured hands waiting for her date, like your usual, pop rock song lead female is. She's very much aware. Like, she's not out to be, deceived. She knows that fidelity is not something she can really expect from Spanish Johnny. But he's sad and has been kicked around, and she's lonely. And it's, sort of a practical arrangement that, might lead to them, getting together again. But she's going to it with eyes wide open like a mature adult, rather than, the high school girl who's gonna get burned. Puerto Rican Jane has been burned. She's past that phase. She knows what to expect. But she goes ahead and goes along with it anyways. And, it's refreshing to see, like, aware women in songs versus, like, the Dumbo who's gonna get taken advantage of, or who has no idea how the world operates, or who blindly believes everything the guy tells her. Like, Puerto Rican Jane knows what's up, but she's okay with it. She's aware. And by the end of the song, kind of like in Sandy, where it starts out as like a one-night standish kind of thing, it almost sounds like there's an allusion to that there is a future. Because she isn't expecting Spanish Johnny to be Prince Charming. She knows what he is. And that takes the pressure to be Mr. Perfect off. And makes a real relationship able to grow. So, like, this is so refreshing, and more artists need to do this. Like, this is the good stuff. And then in Backstreets, Bruce puts Terry in such equal terms that people who are familiar with Terry Moore as a masculine name, because it is both masculine and feminine, have thought that Backstreets was about, like a guy, like, a bro doing his bro wrong. Of course, when you listen to the live versions and Bruce does the monologue about, how he's waiting for her at the church and how she lied, it's very obvious. It's a romantic relationship with a woman, but he puts her in such equal terms that it confuses people because they're not used to women in songs being referred to as, like, in the summer me and Terry became friends. Normally it's like we became lovers, we became this, we became that, became something explicitly romantic versus friends. Friends isn't often a title picked, especially for a relationship that goes sour. Maybe something like, Queen's You're My Best Friend, where he's singing about his wife. But the maturity there is astonishing. And then also, like the heroes we thought we had to be. Like, how many songs refer to a female as a hero? Like, I can't think of a whole hell of a lot of those. Like, Bruce just is really good at this, and it astounds me how good he is at this arranging women where they're independent of just being a romantic ideal. It's so refreshing. But and he does it in Racing in the Streets a little bit too, because in Racing in the Street, the girl on the porch is depressed. She's either that tired from work or she's that down from life, or both, that she can't even get out of bed when he gets home from racing and turn on, have the lights on and wait up for him. Like your normal girl in a pop song or rock song is up all night waiting for her boyfriend to come home. And that's not always realistic. Sometimes girls get depressed. Sometimes girls are tired from working. And Bruce addresses this because he understands how the real world works. But that doesn't take, just because she's actually depressed or too tired, doesn't take away her value to him. And that is so amazing that he writes that in there. Because, he still wants to take her out and, sort of get her away from the situation that she's in so that she'll feel better. And, he still cares about her. And she, in spite of her depression, is still muscling up enough to stay up enough to be like, well, how'd the race go? Even though she's not doing so great. And, like, nobody else writes songs like this. Where the value of a woman isn't dependent on what she can provide to the man in her life. Where, like, he still loves her and he still values her even though she isn't up with dinner ready to go at 9 o'clock when he gets back from racing. She's depressed and in bed. And the lights aren't even on. Like, girl is not in a good place. And that's okay. And it's okay with him for her to not be okay. He just wants to do whatever he can to help her be okay again. And I'm like, thank you, Bruce. No one else writes stuff like this. You know, there's so many life lessons, and it's like I've said before, I tell my guy friends who who claim that they don't understand women, I'm like, go listen to Bruce. Jackson Browne too, but mainly Bruce. Like, if nothing else, go listen to Bruce Springsteen. He's like the instruction manual on how to properly understand women. And I love him for it. So it's just so refreshing. And he, and he also Bruce often covers a really uncommon topic, which is single mothers and mothers in general. Like, they don't really make it to rock songs very often. Unless it's, like the mother of the child that, like Bobby Jean. I mean, not Bobby Jean, Billie Jean. Wrong song. Billie Jean, where, like, she's trying to, foist a kid on him that isn't his. Motherhood doesn't really pop up much in the rock and pop world. As Bruce has acknowledged, in live concerts when he's made comments, I think, about the song My Wish or whatever, the song they wrote for his mom. But Bruce has a lot of songs, like a good half dozen or so, that have mothers who seem to be, if there's a man in the song, they seem to be mothers of children that aren't necessarily the romantic interest male's children. Like, obviously, in A Good Man Is Hard to Find, she's a widow from the sound of the song, Her husband was military, and it sounds like he's, gone, because she's looking for a good man. And, this tender perspective of life after losing her good man and trying to find another one and trying to prepare her daughter for a world where it's so hard to find a good man. And then Spare Parts is the other side of that, where she had a man who was not as good as she thought he was, and she has to emerge from being the pop princess, with her delusions of grandeur, to buckle down and face reality, and it's cold and it's ugly and she doesn't know what to do. But by the end of the song, she's at least able to, like, shoulder some of her responsibilities and, set aside her dreams that are not going to come true. She's not going, she needs to sell the wedding dress because he's not coming back and she needs the dough. So it's, the practicality and the real, life situations that a woman could get into, which nobody else discusses. Hardly. I mean, I say nobody. I know that there are probably other songwriters out there who discuss these things. But Bruce makes, like, a cottage industry out of it, and I adore him. It's perfect. Thank you, sir. Not a lot of other people do this, especially of that, like, famous stature, that he has. And he's over here, and he's putting them in real tough situations. Not always, unless it's deciding between one man and another. Usually pop and rock songs don't put women in tough situations, but here they are, facing reality, selling their wedding dress to go get some cold hard cash. It works. And then, but those obviously aren't the only songs where he's got a single mom. The most famous of all, probably, and my favorite, one of the best love songs ever, is I Want to Marry You, off of The River, where, the romantic interest is a single mother of two. And the male lead is basically doing everything that Bobby in Spare Parts did wrong right. He's over here going, hey, let's face our responsibilities, and I'm not necessarily the Prince Charming you dreamed of when you were in high school. I'm no hero, but I'm willing to stick around, and I'm willing to help you out, and I love you and I want to marry you, which is, the best possible way. Like, I mean, I swear, a random stranger could serenade me with I Want to Marry You, and I would probably marry them. It's that perfect of a love song. I mean, I don't have any children like the heroine does, but I get the whole, like, being, like, sort of worn out from work and, going around doing my own thing, and, like, she has her own life, and he still loves her desperately. He wants to marry her. And, he's not giving her all these wild promises like, oh, you can quit your job and put your feet up and life will be sunshine and roses. He's like, no, I don't know what life's gonna be, but I do know that I'll stick around for you and help you out. And I mean, he's willing to face responsibilities that include, the family he didn't father. Like, he's such a good man in this song. The man in this song needs to be real, because that is a gem of a male. Like, he is, like I said, he's doing everything that Bobby in Spare Parts did wrong correctly. He's the complete antithesis of the man in Spare Parts who ditches his girlfriend who he was gonna marry and heads south to work in the oil fields, and once he finds out his son's been born, he refuses to come back. Like, what a skank. Like, what a horrible human being. And then you have the male and I Want to Marry You, who's doing the complete opposite of that and taking responsibility for somebody else's children, and wanting to take care of, the mother. And I'm just like, this is the good stuff. He's just, he's gonna man up and everything that, like I said, everything that Bobby in Spare Parts didn't do. And then, as far as single motherhood goes, Bruce covers it again in Black Cowboys, sadly in a very tragic sense, because, it's the perspective of a son watching his mother fall into addiction. And it's sort of like Point Blank is the perspective of a lover watching addiction take its toll on a former, flame. Black Cowboys is so much more tragic even than Point Blank, and Point Blank is tragic. Because it's, her son, and suddenly, his mom's not there for him anymore because she's just sort of a shell of who she was. And, so yet again, you have the single mother struggle raising its head, and she falls in with a bad man and, ends up ultimately failing her child. And then, moving on again to women with jobs, you have Jackson Cage, which is sort of, we don't know exactly what the cage is. The cage very well could be addiction of the inner city life, like in Point Blank and Black Cowboys. But the cool thing about Jackson Cage is that not only is the hero of the song the girl, and she's the one who may turn the key to open the cage to Jackson Cage, set them free. She's, her whole struggle, her coming home from work, her not wanting to see the world that she's in and turning, the blinds and stuff. Like, yet again, Bruce is exploring a woman's life experience outside of just her romance, outside of her love life. She has a life outside of that. So few artists really do that. And Bruce does it often, and he does it very well. And it's things like that where you put, the female in the real life context that makes the love songs that he writes more believable, because they draw off of reality, not some fantasy foo-fa-ra land where Prince Charming and Cinderella are real. No, he's like, Cinderella's got a job. And she's kind of tired and her job sucks, but, she's still got it because she has to live. She requires food and fuel for her vehicle. These practical real life things. Of course, sometimes, like I said, the job sucks. Like, in Car Wash, where she's, it's a first person female perspective about this girl named Catherine, who's just so done with her job at the car wash and gets through her day by daydreaming about, becoming a famous nightclub singer and being, offered $1 million contract. But, at the end of the day, she just wants to go home and be with her kids. And it's really refreshing. I love that song. It's fun. It's kind of, snarky, but I adore it. As somebody who's worked in service industry, I feel that. I think Walmart may be worse than the car wash. And McDonald's certainly is. So, it's these women with jobs, and sometimes they don't like their jobs. Sometimes their job sucks. Like the queen of the supermarket. I mean, the queen and Catherine are kind of quite similar, as in, like, they've got these kind of boring, grungy service industry jobs. Like Bruce's sister Virginia, who worked at a Kmart all her life. Excuse me. And they're just getting through their day. I mean, the queen is bored, and she may be daydreaming just as much as Catherine's daydreaming in a car wash. Who knows? The queen of the supermarket may be daydreaming about, becoming a dancer or a writer or whatever it is. I mean, he gives these women dreams and aspirations. That's why, like, circling back to I Want to Marry You, the line in I Want to Marry You of, I can't make your dreams come true, but maybe, baby, I could help them along. And even all the way back in Born to Run with, I want to guard your dreams and visions. Bruce lets his women have full lives where they have dreams. And those dreams aren't necessarily getting married in a picket fence and children. They may be, or they may be something completely different. They may be becoming a singer in a nightclub, like, the girl Catherine in Car Wash. Like, they have aspirations outside of things they can provide to the men in their life. Which, not that that's a bad thing. I'm all for providing for, your romantic partner. Your lifetime person. But there is more to life than just that. And so few writers cover that. They're just like, women exist just to, like, fulfill these categories of, like, lover and mother and housewife. And do they have dreams besides that? I don't know. I have never asked one. That kind of nonsense. And Bruce is like, yep, they do. Here, let me spell out, the life of women in detail and do so with almost dead accuracy. And that's why his songs are so relatable. Because you're like, hey, I've been there. I've been, stared at the sky with the eyes of one who hates for just being born. And I've been tired coming home from work. And, some of us, have been like, hey, this probably isn't going to go anywhere, but I'm lonely and that guy seems kind of nice, like Puerto Rican Jane. Like, they're real, living, breathing humans in his song, just like the men in his songs are. He has loads of songs for the working male as well. But the working girl is where we're at today. And, I mean, even Wanda in Open All Night, she's got a grungy service industry job at a burger joint. And she's still the light of his life that he's driving hours to get to after getting off from working the night shift. I've worked the night shift. I don't want to do nothing after I get off work working the night shift. So, like, he just does so well exploring the lives of women and their, daily grind. Because we got one too. It's not the 1950s anymore. We can't afford to sit at home on the sofa in our immaculate house dress with an apron and have fresh loaves of bread ready. We had to work 8 hours too, people. So, like, it's just really, really refreshing to, like, hear that in a song. It sort of validates the life that most of us have to live. And I really super appreciated it in those songs. And also, of course, my favorite here, because a lot of people are like, oh, Tom Waits wrote Jersey Girl, which is true. Tom Waits did write most of Jersey Girl. But the Bruce Springsteen version, starting with I see you on the street and you look so tired, and I know that job you got leaves you so uninspired, that starting there and everything after, give or take the sha-la-la-la-las, is all Bruce. Which is the best part of the song. I mean, he acknowledges that she's too tired to even get up and finish putting on her makeup. Like, she fell asleep on her bed in her dress, dressed up to go out. Like, she wants to go out. She's not too tired to go out entirely. Like, she's making an effort. But girl is tired! She has worked all day. She has an exhausting dead-end job. She has a child. She just wants to sleep. I mean, but she wants to go out, too. And, he wakes her up and sort of like, put your makeup on and we're going to go out and we're going to drop your kid off at your mom's, and depending on which version of the song you're listening to live, the kid doesn't necessarily always sound like it's Bruce's character's child. Yet again, it could be a, single mother situation again, where he's dating another single mom. Obviously, there's been times where Bruce has sang Jersey Girl, especially after he's married Patty, where it's those brats of ours and drop them off at your mom's. But, the version that is most commonly played is that little brat of yours and drop her off at your mom's. So it kind of, the phrasing implies that it's not his kid. But still, he's okay with dating a single mom. And okay with the fact that she's too tired. He's not coming in and griping her out. He's just like, hey, I know you want to go out, so get up, get your makeup on, and, let's go. Which is just... Jersey Girl, especially the portion that Bruce wrote, and I Want to Marry You are such romantic songs, and it is because he gives these women independent lives and acknowledges their struggles, rather than putting the expectation on them to be the perfectly manicured princess who's sitting on her sofa ready for her date. All dressed up and ready to go. It's like, no, you're tired. You've got kids. You've got a life. You've got a job. You've got a job that you're not in love with. And some days you're tired from being a mom, and it's okay. I still love you. Still romantically pursuing you, even though you're not perfect. Which is just, like, the best kind of love song there is. And, I cannot express it enough, especially with Jersey Girl and the part that he wrote at the end. Like, that part makes the song. I mean, no, not knocking the Tom Waits portion, but it's that addition that Bruce Springsteen put on that gives a full body to the woman in the song, and she's now, a living, breathing creature, and it's so much more relatable, which makes the romance in the song so much more believable, because even though she is not the perfect princess, she still makes his dreams come true, and, that is the soothing validation that, a girl's soul needs, which is like, hey, just because you're not perfect, and just because, you're tired, and just because you stare at the sky with the eyes of one who hates for just being born, or just because you have a child that's not necessarily, the romantic, your current romantic interest, does not make you lose value, does not make you any less romantically attractive. It lifts the burden to be perfect. Bruce takes that nonsense and chucks it out the window. And it's like, hey, you're alive. You're a human being. You have highs, lows, struggles, jobs you hate, children, that, you are sometimes a burden. And you're still wonderful for it. And, it's hard to put into words how much these songs mean to me because of that. It's, he mixes in the practical with the romantic so well, to the point that, just little details, like in Drive All Night with, I want to buy you some shoes. That's not normally a love song is offering diamonds and jewelry and the moon. And he's like, no, baby girl needs some shoes. Probably because she has a job and, doesn't have a lot of money right now. And, diamond necklaces are nice, but A, his character probably can't afford them. And B, that's not what she needs. She needs a new pair of shoes. The current one she has very well maybe held together by duct tape. And he's like, you know what? I'm going to get a nice pair of comfy shoes to go work in. Real life love. And Bruce is the boss of writing love songs for the working girl. No one else comes close that I know of. And I am indebted and ever grateful for these songs, for just reminding me that you don't have to be perfect to be beautiful. You don't have to have your life together. You can make mistakes and still be worthy of love. All these things that Bruce just puts beautifully into his lyrics. Just make him the boss of the working girl and the boss of us all. And he has such insight into the human condition, and I'm so grateful for his songs. And so, on that note, I will end this ramble. Hope y'all enjoyed. Go thank a working girl. If you've got one in your life that's romantic interest, go kiss her and tell her how awesome she is. And how you appreciate all the hard work she does. Because that's what Bruce would do. But anyways, y'all have a great week. Be kind to each other. Be kind to your working girls in the service industries, because our life is miserable. I've been in that life. Thank a Walmart employee. They will probably die of shock. And I will see y'all next week for the final segment of Springstember. And have a great week, and rock on.